I like this question from Jay, and kind of hitting on the Georgia piece. He says, "What score in Week 1 kind of starts the road to recovery for Dabo and Clemson's football perception?" It's hard to place a score on it because scores are not always telling of how a game plays out. Maybe there's a world where a team can win 35-21, per se. Just throwing out an example, and it looks very, and they can get to that score in, very different ways. Like you could be up 35-7 and give up 2 late touchdowns, but you really dominated the majority of the game. Or, it was a tight game throughout, maybe a turnover or a pick six goes the other direction, and the team ends up, the winning team ends up winning by 2 scores, but in reality it was a back and forth game for a lot. So I mean, it really just depends on how the game plays out, not necessarily the score. Like if Clemson looks like they belong on the field, I think that's more than enough. And I think they have the talent to belong on the field, but it really is just about, especially from an offensive standpoint, looking like you belong.
You got look. The big thing, the big thing with Week 1 in Georgia is how is Clemson's offense going to fare? Are they truly an improved offense? What is year 2 under Garrett Riley going to look like? If it looks like Week 1, we're going to get absolutely demolished, and it's going to be a total embarrassment on national television. It's really based off of how much the offensive side of the ball has improved, and obviously starting with the offensive line, but Cade Klubnik's development, his ability to read the field and make the proper decisions and play within the system that Garrett Riley is putting him in, the receivers, but really it's the offensive side of the ball will determine how competitive Clemson is in Week 1 against Georgia. And if they are truly improved to the ability that their roster says they can be, it could be a competitive game. If they're not, it's going to be, a bloodbath, if you will.
Yeah.
The defensive side of the ball, I don't think there's not that there's no questions on Clemson's defense. There obviously is, but as a whole, there's not a ton of questions about Clemson's defense or Wes Goodwin's ability to produce a top level defense at Clemson. So really, I don't know what the score, what score it would be to be like, oh, that's okay. I don't really like to really get into that, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how the game plays out. I don't think there's a number we could say right now to be like, oh, if Georgia had this and Clemson had this, we'd be 100% okay with it, right? I want to win the game first and foremost. So that's what I want to see happen. But, I don't know. That's a long-winded way of saying I have no idea what that score would be.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, obviously, winning the game flat out would do a lot. So that's kind of the way I want to look at it. Is like, okay, well, just go out and win. Like, don't worry about what, how much do we have? Can we afford to lose by to not be embarrassed on national television? Like, no, I think Clemson can beat Georgia. I'll say that right out. I think they absolutely can beat Georgia, and if things that we needed to see improve from last season do, and the steps that should have been taken have been from from the quarterback standpoint, from the offensive line standpoint. Yeah, I mean, I think you can beat Georgia, especially with the defense that you have. I think you have a chance to stay in that game and make it competitive. Yeah, despite what the point spread may say, but just going out and winning it as opposed to just talking about. I was like, oh man, I hope we don't get beat too bad. I think that's better than that's the better way to look at it for me. And that's not me picking Clemson to beat Georgia, by the way. So we'll talk about that, and we'll do a whole Georgia preview. As we get closer to the year, and well, obviously the show before, we'll make our predictions and all that. But yeah, Can't be. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if Clemson wants to return to where they are, I mean, these are the kind of games you have to win. Um, so we'll see. I think I made SEC dog a little upset, but it is what it is. I mean, what do you want me to say? I said Clemson can beat Georgia. Yeah, based on a lot of things. Based on yes, based on the defense. Yes, based on the skill talent that Clemson brings back and the skill talent that they've added. This is the best wide receiver room they've had in about 4 years. You bring back a really talented running back. Year 2 in Garrett Riley's system. 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line. You made the hire of Matt Luke. A lot of reasons to think the offense improves, but it's really just about how much we don't know.
Yeah, we have
But
no idea.
But with the defense that Clemson brings back, the load of talent that you've brought in this recruiting class, that I think some of the a lot of these guys are going to be able to contribute. I think Clemson can beat Georgia. They said they can. I didn't say they will or it's likely, but I think they can, and they'll need things to go. They'll need things to go right. I think Georgia is the better team. Don't get me wrong. I think Georgia's one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country. So it's not saying much to say that Georgia's the better team, but I think there is a world. And based on what I know Georgia's roster pretty well, and Clemson's. There is a world where Clemson beats Georgia. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Look, nobody in Vegas is going to pick it. No linebackers are going to pick it. There won't be very much money coming in on Clemson, but there's a world out there where it is in the realm of possibility that Georgia loses to Clemson, right? Albeit unlikely, right?
Yeah.
On surface level, judging by the trajectory of the 2 programs and how the past couple seasons have gone for each individual program, right? But that doesn't mean that Clemson doesn't have the talent to compete with Georgia. I mean, I understand that Georgia is in a far better place as a program standpoint as it stands right now on June 6, 2024 than Clemson is. But let's not pretend like Clemson doesn't have the talent on the roster to beat a team like Georgia. That's just simply not true. It's not true. And, just like you, Jordan, I'm not saying they will beat them, but they have the talent on the roster. It's just about the coaches on the offensive side of the ball specifically getting it together and it getting much, much better on that side of the ball. But the talent's there to compete. And if you can compete with a team, that means you can beat a team on any given day, right?
Right.
So, again, the good thing about it is the game will have to be played. And the score will be what it is. And then we'll all know, right, whether Clemson could keep the game close, win the game, get absolutely obliterated, whatever the case may be. It'll all play out on August 31st. We don't have to wait too terribly much longer. But, I understand Georgia and SEC dogs' confidence. I would be confident as well.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like it wouldn't make sense to have a Georgia fan be like, well, I don't know, it's like I'm kind of worried, but like no, like Georgia coming into the season, the point spread is what it is for a reason, and so that's I would be confident as well, but I'm just I am confident. I don't want to say confident, but I know what Clemson has on the roster, and if you get the ingredients together and you're able to produce up to the talent level that the roster says you should be, then yeah, you can beat Georgia. But again, that has everything. Everything has to go right. You have to the offense has to play up to their talent level. Cade has to play up to his talent level. offensive line has to play up to their talent level. The wide receivers, I love these wide receivers. I love this group. I really do. I really am excited about this group. But they got to show it too. I love having Jake Brenningstool and Phil Maffa back. They have to be Jake Brenningstool and Phil Maffa.
Yeah.
All of that has to happen. So it's like that's why it's not, no one's saying Clemson is going to be Georgia or that it's likely.
No.
Because Clemson needs things to go right. And even still, even if all those things happen, Clemson could still lose the game. Like they might need a break here or two. Maybe Carson Beck throws a turnover. Like there's a lot that has to go right for Clemson to win, but they are not completely outclassed from a roster standpoint to the point where it's like, we should just lay down and I would just move on to week 2. Like this is a game that Clemson, has the ability to win, not the likelihood to win. So that's my big long Georgia speech. We were still really basically 3 months, but a little under 3 months out from that game. But and we'll talk about it more. But I do that's my I'm not going into this Georgia game completely, I'm just looking to App State. Like I just hope we look good against App State next week. Like this game matters for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
Clemson Georgia Clemson Georgia is a historical rival, just for a lot of reasons, geographic, recruiting, all of that. I mean, you go head to head with them every single year for recruits. Kirby Smart is the top coach in the game right now. Like a win over them would do wonders for obvious reasons. So I'm not, going into this game thinking, I just hope Georgia doesn't beat us, but too bad. Like I don't like. That's not what Clemson. That's not what Clemson is. That's just they're not going to go into any game, thinking that's where they stand. And knowing I'm not being delusional or anything like that. I know what Clemson recruits to, the type of players they have. I know the type of athletes and players that Georgia has. And I think Clemson has the prerequisite talent to belong on that same field. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Sorry for the long rant. Couple more questions, preferably not about Georgia. The chat's fired up.
Oh yeah. SDC dogs going back and forth with the chat. They're all going at each other. So